one of the things I was thinking about, oh good, there's no traffic today. One of the things I was thinking about was something that changed my life. Not really did it only change my life, but it changed my friends' lives, and it drastically affected one of my best friends. We were on our way to a ski trip back in 1992, I guess it was. And there was 4 of us going on a ski trip, and it was me, my friend Richard, Chuck, and Ben. And we had left off that Saturday morning, I think it was. You know, the thing is that I don't remember the dates, but I'm sure that Richard remembers the dates exactly. But anyways, we were on our way to a ski trip, and it was like a Saturday morning, or yeah, it was a Saturday morning. And then we got about maybe 40 minutes up the road, and we noticed that, you know, I noticed that it's like, yeah, we're going pretty slow because we're being pretty safe, and normally that's not quite us, you know, being safe when we're driving, but we were going pretty safe, and then we hit a bridge. Well, we didn't hit a bridge, but we went on a bridge, and on the bridge we hit some black ice because it was wintertime in Michigan. Of course, we're going skiing, and I remember I was sitting in the back seat of an Astro van. If you remember what those are, I was sitting in the back seat of an Astro van on the right passenger side, and then in front of me was Richard, and Ben was sitting to the left of me behind the driver's seat, and Chuck was driving. We were 16, 17 at the time, and we hit the little slippery spot in there, and I remember the rear end of the van coming to the right, and then we counter-steered it and went to the left, and then we ended up hitting the guardrails on the bridge and just bouncing back and forth. And one of the things was too is I remember that it was all quiet, and right when it started to get a little loose, I stood up a little bit, like almost stood up, because I was getting ready to look out the front windshield, and I was bracing myself, and none of us had our seatbelts on because this was back in the days, of course, and prior to that seatbelt stuff. And the next thing I know, I remember, like, the window was like on the right side window where the passenger is, like that part hitting me in the stomach, and I remember getting the wind knocked out of me. So all I remember is being like, whoo, and then seeing like a white line in the road, and also seeing the back tire of the van at the same time. It was just like a picture of the back tire of the van and the white line of the road as I hang outside. And I was thinking, oh, look, there's the road and there's the white line. And then the next thing I know, I see myself was laying on my back, tumbling down the road, and I could see the back of the van and the rear tire of the van. And I was thinking to myself, once again, it was just a shot, like a camera shot, a picture. And I remember thinking, the van's gonna hit me, I need to get out the way. So I was trying to scramble out of the way, and then I tumbled down, and I got up, and I could see the van over there, all wrecked, and I looked around and nobody was there, and then I tried to run towards the van, and I didn't have any shoes on because my shoes had come off during the crash. I remember wearing some black Adidas because that's all I wore, of course. And then when I went to the other side of the van, I could see all the 3 guys laying there, but before I even got there, I tried calling out for Richard. I remember yelling out for Richard, and I couldn't yell because I had the wind knocked out of me, so it was like it was just like like that noise. And then I went up to the other side of the van, and I could see all 3 of those guys just laying there, and then they're all motionless. And then Chuck started to move a little bit first, and then I was talking to everyone, and everyone was out, and then Chuck started moving first, and then finally he got up, and he didn't know like what was going on, what happened. And I tried to explain to him that we just got into an accident and stuff, and he was still like a little out of it. And then finally Ben started moaning and moving a little bit, but he never got up. And then And then Richard was just laying there the whole time, and he was calling, and I was trying to talk to him a little bit, but he was just laying there. And eventually all these people stopped and stuff, and were asking everything, like what was going on, and they called 911. And after a few minutes, the ambulance was there, and eventually Ben was up sitting there, and then Chuck was up walking around, and Richard was laying there. Ben was still just laying there, though. But he was like talking, and Richard was talking to us a little bit too. And then eventually the ambulance came, and they scooped everybody up and took them away. And I was just sitting there, and someone said, "Hey, this guy too. He was also in the accident." So they packaged me up, and of course, and then they took me in, and I remember laying in the hospital, and I remember the guy too. I remember looking at the guy. I think it was like a volunteer, because he wasn't in a uniform in the back of the ambulance, but I could see genuine concern on his face of what just happened, because we're in a small community, and stuff like this doesn't happen very often, especially when it's younger guys. We weren't drinking, we weren't doing anything wrong. We just got into an accident, and we got to the hospital, and I could just imagine too, like our parents and stuff, like getting that phone call, like you hear that phone ring, and sometimes like it's something ain't right. Or when you answer the phone and whoever's on the other side of the line says who they are. And I haven't had to experience that on my side, but I've had to experience it on the other side, because I've had to make those phone calls a couple times when I used to work. But it's one of those things. And I remember my dad was afterwards, he was telling me about it, because I was there. He picked me up, but when I was laying in there, I saw them wheel, and I was laying in the hospital, and I saw them wheel Richard by. Gotta hit these RPMs. I saw them wheel Richard by in the gurney, and I tried to call out for him too, but they took him too fast, and he just walked by the door. But and then afterwards, we were there. I got checked out, and of course they told me I was pretty lucky and everything like that. And my dad, on our way out, we talked to Richard's dad too, because my dad, he was hauling ass to get there. Of course, he's a cop, so he always plays it pretty safe, but he was still hauling ass, and he was telling me that he saw Cecil go by, Richard's dad, just smoking it, which and I would do the same thing, and of course, and so after that, we went home, and I found out like what had happened to the other guys the next day. Chuck was released with just a concussion like later on, and then Ben, they ended up keeping him overnight for observation because he had some internal bleeding. And Richard, he had broke his neck in 2 places, and he ended up getting paralyzed from that, from like the nipples down. And during the accident, we both had, all 4 of us had went out the passenger or the driver's side windows. So Richard and Chuck both was in the front, and they flew out the driver's side window, and I flew out from my side of the passenger side, behind backseat passenger side. I flew all the way across out the driver's side window, or the driver's side window, but the back passenger side. And then even Chuck too. Chuck he was a good sized boy back then. He was probably 230, like 6'2", 230, and he was managed to squeeze his little body like out that window with all that force. And then Richard too, he went across too the same way. I think he was right at 200 pounds, and he's a good sized guy too. He was like I don't know how tall. I think he's like 6'1". It's been a while since I saw him standing. So, but I remember too, like after, I think it was his wedding, he had this thing that let him stand up. It was pretty cool. So I forget how tall he was, but after we got out the hospital, I went home, and the next day, I was just sore, like pretty damn sore and beat up. And I remember the only thing that I wanted to do was go see this girl who I had like the biggest crush on at the time. Her name was Angie. So I just wanted to hurry up and like go see her. So the next morning, Sunday morning, I woke up, and I don't even think we told anybody yet. Like nobody knew. So I walked over to their house, which was like a half-mile away, and in the wintertime outside, and I was sore as shit. Like my whole body was just sore, and it hurt so much. It hurt so damn much to walk. But me being like the the little boy and not in love, but I guess like infatuated, I toughed it out and walked that walk there, and it took me forever because man, my chest was so sore, like everything hurt so damn bad, and by the time I got there, I was kind of loosened up a little bit, so everything was decent enough when I got there. But once I got there, and we talked and everything, and blah 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 blah, and on the way home, I had to walk again, and shit, man. After sitting there and getting like cooled down, my body cooled down, and again, and walking outside in the cold and shit, man, I just wanted to cry, like going home, because that was like the longest walk ever. I think it took me like an hour to get home, and so Richard spent some time in the hospital, of course, and we all went to go see him and everything, and he ended up finally getting out of the hospital, and it was a long while, because I think I got a picture of us, but his first thing he did when he got out of the hospital was he went he came to prom with us, and we were happy as shit to have him there, because we were all really good friends, like the group of us, because it was a small school anyways. There's only like 73 people in my graduating class, and so he came to prom, and he was only there for like an hour or so, but he came in, the sun's out, look, it was just raining like a little bit too. We came in and took pictures and everything, and it was just a happy ass time, and time goes on, and he learned to cope with it and deal with it and live with it, and now here he is today, still in the chair, but still working at things and still making progress, and he's got kids now, he's married and doing well for himself, and I'm proud of him, and all that. But that's like one of the things that I learned, that how important it is to be safe and wear a seatbelt. That's like one of the things when I ride, and I try to wear as much protective gear as I can, and when I ride off-road, I stay semi-conservative, even though a lot of the guys who ride off-road with me know me as a little bit different. And so that's about that. We are on top of the Mactan Bridge, and I guess my wife was saying yesterday that there's an accident here on the bridge somewhere, and some guy had got splayed up pretty good, and he didn't make it, and his head was opened up, like gone. But that's enough of that story for here. Found on this Sunday. Well, it's not Sunday today. It's what day is today? I don't know. I just ride. But it's in the afternoon, and the sun's out, and it's nice. So we'll see you guys next time.